Every Christmas, it was the same excuse. "There just isn't enough room for you and the kids," my mother would say gently, as if kindness could soften the cruelty of the words. And so I would stand outside, clutching gift bags and my children's tiny hands, listening to the muffled sounds of my nieces and nephews tearing through wrapping paper inside. Their laughter leaked through the walls while I stayed on the porch, smiling into the cold like that was somehow my place. Last year, I thought maybe, just maybe, it would be different. I baked cookies, I wrapped presents with care, I even called ahead, just to be sure. And still, on Christmas Eve, I found myself standing on the porch of the house I grew up in, my daughter tugging on my sleeve and asking, "Mommy, why aren't we going inside?" Through the frosted glass, I could see the table already full. Melissa's twins, her husband, even her mother-in-law. Everyone had a seat. "Not me," my mother said with a polite smile. "Maybe next year." I didn't argue. I just nodded, took my kids back to the car, and quietly decided that next year would be mine. I didn't say anything as we drove home. Leia, my 6-year-old, hummed softly in the back seat, probably trying to distract herself from a confusion she couldn't quite name yet. Ben had already fallen asleep, clutching the little reindeer plush he'd been so excited to show Grandma. When we reached our tiny 2-bedroom apartment, I tucked them into bed, kissed their foreheads, and stood staring at the bare spot in the living room where a Christmas tree should have been. Then I sat at the kitchen table, poured myself a glass of boxed wine, and opened the text from my sister. "Hope you're not too upset. Mom was really overwhelmed this year. Maybe stop by tomorrow. Tomorrow, for leftovers." After everyone else had laughed, unwrapped gifts, and eaten together, I didn't reply. Because it wasn't just that night. It had been building for a long time. Slow, quiet, consistent, like a steady drip from a leaky faucet. Eventually, you stop noticing the sound until the damage is already done. It started small. A birthday dinner I was never invited to because they thought I was working late. Mom's retirement party I found out about through Facebook. A family barbecue where Melissa tagged everyone in a group photo. Everyone except me. Each time, I told myself it was a misunderstanding, that they weren't doing it on purpose, that I shouldn't make a fuss. And even when I brought it up gently, carefully, my mother would smile and say, "Oh, honey, you know you're always welcome. Always welcome." Unless the table was too full. Unless Melissa's family was there. Unless the room just wasn't big enough. That night, I made a promise to myself. I was done pretending that being treated like an afterthought was normal. I was done letting my children think it was okay for their mother to be invisible. And more than anything, I was done with the myth of next year. There would be no more knocking on closed doors. If they couldn't make room for us, I would build a new table, one with wide chairs, warm lights, and enough space for people who actually wanted to be there. I didn't know how yet, but I knew this. Next Christmas, we wouldn't be standing on a porch. We'd be opening our own front door. 6 months before that cold Christmas Eve, my marriage officially ended. There were no shouting matches, no slamming doors, just silence and the sound of 2 people drifting apart after years of unmet needs and tired compromises. Jacob and I sat at opposite ends of a long wooden table, ironic, really, and signed the final papers. He kept the house in Charlotte. I took the kids, the car, and moved back to my hometown, Charleston. I told myself I was coming back for support, for family, for familiarity and stability for Leia and Ben. What I didn't realize was that I was walking straight back into the same dynamic I'd spent years trying to outgrow. My parents welcomed me politely, but with that tight-lipped tone that made it clear they thought I had failed. Melissa never said it outright, but she didn't have to. She wore superiority like perfume, just strong enough to make sure everyone else could smell it. The apartment I found wasn't glamorous. 2 small bedrooms, old tile floors, and a leaky faucet that whined like it had opinions. But it was ours. I got a job as a junior marketing assistant at a boutique firm downtown. The pay was modest, but the work excited me. At night, I picked up freelance design projects, logos, websites, copywriting, sometimes working until 2 in the morning, eyes burning, heart pounding. Because even if no one else saw my worth, I would. Some nights, after the kids were asleep, I sat on the living room floor with takeout containers spread around me and drew blueprints, literal sketches of the life I wanted. A home, a backyard, a kitchen filled with noise and smells and people I loved. A Christmas that didn't require permission. One night, Leah taped one of those drawings to the fridge. It showed a big house with a red door, snow on the roof, and 3 stick figures holding hands out front. Beneath it, in her uneven first-grade handwriting, she wrote, "Home. Just us." I kept working. Every client I took on, every dollar I saved, every late night and early morning poured into that dream wasn't about proving anything to my family. It was about proving something to the little girl I used to be, the one who sat at the kids' table and wondered why there was never room for her anywhere else. And to the woman I was now, raising a daughter and a son, determined they would never feel like visitors in their own story. Momentum has a funny way of showing up when you stop waiting for permission. By spring, my freelance calendar was full. Local cafes needed websites. A yoga studio hired me to rebrand. A small law firm wanted monthly social media strategy. I worked during nap times, after bedtime, between school drop-offs and morning meetings. It was exhausting, but it was mine. At the agency, my boss started noticing. One afternoon, after I presented a campaign pitch that ended in genuine applause, he pulled me aside. "You've got real instincts," he said. 2 weeks later, I was promoted to senior marketing associate. 2 months after that, to account manager. And with every step forward, the life I'd sketched on napkins and kid art paper came closer to reality. One Thursday in early October, I passed a house. It wasn't flashy. In fact, it looked a little tired. The paint was fading, the porch light crooked, the yard overgrown with ivy. But there was something about it, a wide front porch, big bay windows, and a bold red door that seemed to say, "We're ready for something new." I pulled over and wrote down the number on the for sale sign. That night, I pulled up the listing. 4 bedrooms, built in 1938, heart pine floors, a dining room with original wainscoting, 10 minutes from the kids' school, 5 minutes from downtown. Without letting myself overthink it, I clicked schedule a tour. The first time we stepped inside, Leah ran her fingers along the banister like it was a piano. "Mom," she whispered, eyes wide. "It smells like Christmas." Ben wandered into the dining room and spun slowly in a patch of sunlight. I closed my eyes for a moment, and I could see it. Garlands on the mantel, laughter in the kitchen, a table big enough for 12, set with real glasses instead of plastic. 3 weeks later, we closed. When I told my parents, my mother said, "Isn't that a bit much, Natalie, for someone in your situation?" My father blinked and muttered, "Well, I just hope you've thought it through." Melissa texted, "4 bedrooms? That's ambitious. You sure you can keep up with that?" I didn't reply. I was too busy pulling up old carpet, repainting walls, and scrubbing away years of someone else's history to make room for our own. Leah picked lavender for her bedroom. Ben chose dinosaurs. I set up my first ever home office, flooded with sunlight and ambition. And then I stood in the dining room, the heart of the house, and ran my hand across the second-hand table I'd refinished myself. "This year," I whispered, "we stay home." By November, the house didn't just feel like home. It felt like ours. Every corner told a new story. Leah's watercolor sunflowers taped to the fridge, Ben's toy trains parked beneath the hallway radiator, stacks of client folders piled high on my desk. I was juggling more than I ever had, but for the first time in years, I felt steady. Then, one night, while brushing Leah's hair before bed, she asked, "Mommy, who's coming to Christmas this year?" The question landed like a whisper in a church. I'd been so focused on surviving the year that I hadn't let myself imagine December. But the moment she asked, the vision snapped into place, like a puzzle piece finally finding its turn. I didn't just want to host Christmas. I wanted to redefine it. The next morning, I made a list. Not of gifts or groceries, but of people. People who had shown up when my own family hadn't. People who clapped when I advanced, who offered rides, watched my kids, passed along job referrals, and sent "You've got this" texts at midnight. The list grew quickly. Maya, my college roommate, whose toddler once called me Aunt Tally. Mrs. Ellis, our elderly neighbor who dropped off banana bread after every storm. Jonah and Eric, the couple across the street who helped me move a couch at 9 p.m. Claire, Leia's art teacher, who stayed late every Thursday just because Leia loved painting dragons. 10 seats, 10 hearts, 10 deliberate choices. Then came the wild idea. Years ago, Melissa had dragged the family to a fine dining restaurant called Magnolia House, where she'd fawned endlessly over the executive chef, Adrian Moss. Truffle risotto, smoked duck with cherry glaze, handcrafted mascarpone. She'd posted about it for weeks. On a whim, I Googled him and called the number listed for private bookings. His assistant answered briskly. "Chef Moss's December is fully booked, has been since August." I paused, then said softly, "I'm willing to triple his standard rate." Silence. "Let me check with the chef," she said. An hour later, my phone rang. "Miss Warren," she said, "Chef Moss would be honored to prepare Christmas dinner in your home." I stared at my calendar. It was the third week of November. We had 1 month. The menu was unbelievable. Herb-crusted lamb, smoked mushroom ravioli, chocolate souffle with spiced citrus cream, sparkling cider for the kids, poured into crystal glasses I'd found on sale and bought anyway, because this year felt worth celebrating properly. I ordered invitations, not printed but handwritten. At the top, I wrote, "Join us for Christmas." Beneath it, a celebration of chosen family and good food. And at the bottom, the line that mattered most. Seats have already been made. All you need to do is arrive hungry and loved. Christmas morning arrived crisp and golden. Sunlight poured into the kitchen as Chef Moss and his 2 assistants transformed my little southern home into something out of a magazine. The air filled with rosemary, butter, and warm bread, drifting through the house like a hymn. I tied Leia's ribbon while Ben carefully placed napkins at each setting, counting under his breath. 1, 2, 3, all the way to 10. When the doorbell rang at 2 p.m., our guests stepped into warmth. Maya arrived with wine and her daughter's laughter. Mrs. Ellis handed Leia a tin of cookies tied with a red ribbon. Jonah and Eric brought a homemade wreath. Claire came with watercolor cards painted by her students. One of them featured my house, complete with its red door. We toasted with sparkling cider and champagne. We laughed. We ate food that tasted like it had stories. Chef Moss explained each course with pride, and the kids beamed as if he were Santa in chef's whites. At one point, I stepped back from the table and just breathed. There was no tension, no tight smiles, no quiet measuring of worth, only joy. After dessert, we moved into the living room for cocoa and board games. Leia challenged Eric to Candyland. Ben fell asleep on Mrs. Ellis's lap. Jonah played quiet jazz on the piano. And in a moment of impulsive, nervous bravery, I picked up my phone. I hadn't posted much all year, just a few photos of the kids, some vague quotes. But this moment felt earned. I took 3 pictures, the dining table glowing in candlelight, untouched and perfect. Leia and Ben laughing in the kitchen with Chef Moss in the background. And a group shot of all of us, glasses raised, caught in that warm, blurry magic only real moments create. The caption was simple. Grateful for friends who feel like family. When Christmas feels like coming home. December 25th. Surrounded by love. I hit post. Within an hour, the likes poured in. So did the comments. "This looks beautiful, Natalie. You deserve every bit of this." "Wait, is that Chef Moss?" I was still smiling when my phone started buzzing. First Melissa, then Mom, then Dad. I didn't answer. But when I checked my messages, Melissa had written, "Was that really Chef Moss in your photo? How did you even book him? And why didn't you invite us?" I stared at that last question for a long time. Why didn't I? Because every Christmas, you didn't. Because every year, I stood on your porch with children and hope, and you told me there wasn't room. Now I had made my own room, and this time, there truly wasn't space for anyone who only showed up when it was convenient. I didn't reply. Some things deserved silence first. 3 days after Christmas, just as I was starting to enjoy the quiet, Melissa showed up. No call, no warning, just the sound of tires crunching in the driveway and sharp knuckles rapping against the front door. I opened it slowly, already bracing myself. She stood there in her tan wool coat and designer boots, a gift bag in one hand, and something sharper in her eyes. "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. The warmth of the house hit her like a wall. Her gaze swept over the garland-lined banisters, the glowing tree, the wine glasses still drying by the sink. Then it landed on the framed photo on the console table. The group shot from Christmas Day. Everyone smiling, everyone glowing. Her jaw tightened. "Nice house," she said, forcing a smile. "Didn't realize you were doing this well." "Thanks," I replied evenly, closing the door behind her. Leia and Ben were upstairs playing. I didn't want them to hear this. "You can sit," I offered, nodding toward the couch. She didn't. "So," she said, voice too sweet, "you really hired Chef Moss? Like, the Chef Moss?" "I did," I said. "Do you know how many years I tried to book him for Mom's birthday? Apparently, he doesn't work with rude clients." Her smile cracked. "You've always been dramatic," she snapped. "Posting those photos, it was petty. You were trying to make us look bad." I laughed softly. "You didn't need my help for that." Her eyes narrowed. "You're mad about one Christmas. One! And suddenly you're throwing some extravagant dinner and parading it all over social media like you've been abandoned." "One?" I echoed. "Melissa, when was the last time I was invited to a family event where I wasn't treated like a pity seat or excluded entirely?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. "I'll wait," I added. She regrouped. "I just think it's sad, all this chosen family stuff. It feels like revenge." "It's not revenge," I said quietly. "It's healing," she scoffed. I went on. "You spent years making me feel like I didn't belong, like my kids were too much, like I had to earn a spot at the table I grew up at. I never meant to." "You did, Melissa, whether you meant to or not. And no one ever apologized. No one ever said, 'We see you, we're sorry.' You just gaslit me and changed the subject." She looked down at her shoes. After a long pause, she said softly, "Mom's been crying for days." I said nothing. "She feels humiliated," Melissa continued. "People at church saw the photos. They're asking why you weren't there for Christmas." "She can tell them the truth," I said, "that there wasn't room." "She regrets it." "Does she?" I asked. "Or is she just upset other people noticed?" Melissa let out a shaky breath. "I know we haven't been fair to you," she said. "But this felt like a slap." I met her gaze. "Good," I said. "Because now you know how it feels." She looked wounded, and for a moment I almost softened it. Almost. But I didn't pull it back. Not this time. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "You already did," I said. "The day you decided your comfort mattered more than my presence. The day you shut the door and told me to come by for leftovers. The day you smiled like it was reasonable to leave me and my kids standing in the cold." She sank onto the couch, all the sharpness draining out of her. "What do you want?" she asked. I walked to the fireplace and picked up one of the watercolor cards Claire had given us. I traced the red door she'd painted with my thumb before turning back to Melissa. I want respect, I said. Not pity, not invitations out of guilt, just basic family respect, she swallowed. And if we changed, could we still be family? I met her eyes. If you want to be part of my life, you'll have to earn it with actions, with honesty, with something real. The silence stretched between us, thick and electric. Then I'll try, she said finally, her voice thin. Good, I replied. Because this time, I'm not making space for anyone who doesn't show up with their whole heart. That night, after Melissa left, I didn't cry. I thought I might, but instead, I sat in the living room, surrounded by the lingering scent of cinnamon and pine, watching the fire burn low. Leia padded down the stairs in fuzzy socks, clutching her blanket. Mommy, she said, curling up beside me. Why did Aunt Melissa come? I hesitated. She wanted to talk. Is she mad? No, baby, I said gently. She's just learning. Learning what? I looked at my daughter's face, so open, so unguarded. Learning how to love better, she blinked, then rested her head on my arm. I like our kind of love better, she whispered. And just like that, years of hurt, closed doors, tight smiles, quiet exclusions, softened. Over the next few days, I started noticing more. Not about my family, but about ours, the one I was building. One day, one boundary, one banana bread wrapped in a ribbon at a time. Leia began setting the table without being asked. Ben drew pictures of our house with smiley stick figures labeled me, Mommy, and Chef Moss. He gave Chef Moss a cape. Mrs. Ellis started coming by once a week for tea. Jonah and Eric helped hang new light fixtures. Claire offered to mentor Leia in watercolor painting. It wasn't blood. It wasn't official. But it was real. And my children, after years of being passed over, hushed, or treated like too much at someone else's table, were finally learning what it felt like to be wanted. Not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but because love, the real kind, makes room. One night, while tucking Leia in, she turned to me and asked, "Is it okay to say no to people if they make you feel small?" I froze for a moment, then nodded. "It's more than okay," I whispered. "It's necessary." She grinned. "Good. I don't want to invite the cousins to my birthday party. They're always mean." I blinked, then smiled. "Okay," I said. "It's your party. You get to choose." She pulled the blanket up to her chin, smiling like she'd just passed a test I hadn't realized she was taking. As I turned off the light, I understood something clearly for the first time. I wasn't just healing myself. I was teaching my children what I'd never learned until far too late. That real love doesn't make you smaller to fit the space. It expands the space to fit all of you. 2 weeks later, I got a message from my mother. "Your father and I would like to see the children. Perhaps we can do something for your birthday." I read it twice, then set my phone down. They hadn't mentioned Christmas, or the photos, or the conversation Melissa and I had. Just the children, not me. That told me everything. I didn't reply right away. I needed space. And more than that, I needed clarity. That weekend, as we decorated for Leia's upcoming birthday, I watched her tape invitations to the wall with glittery stickers and hand-drawn hearts. She turned to me and asked, "Do I have to invite people I don't feel safe with?" I smiled. "No, baby, you never do. And neither do I." That night, I finally responded to my mother. The kids are doing well. Their schedule is full, and so is our life. If you'd like to reconnect, it has to begin with honesty and respect. I'm no longer entertaining anything less. She hasn't replied since. And you know what? That silence feels lighter now. Lighter than all the years I spent trying to earn my seat at a table that was never meant for me. Because here's what I've learned. Love that needs to be earned in silence isn't love. Love that excludes, belittles, or conveniently forgets isn't family. The family I have now shows up without needing to be asked. they text memes. They bring soup when my kids are sick. They remember my birthday. They cheer when I land a new client. They stay after dinner to help with the dishes. And that is more than enough. Last week, Chef Moss called to confirm Christmas again. Same date, same menu, with one addition this year. Leia's favorite, maple glazed carrots. Ben requested s'mores. We're making those too. The guest list is bigger this time. Some new names, some old ones. All chosen, all welcome. This house, this table, this life, it's full of laughter, mess, growth, and homemade joy. Full of people who know how to make space instead of excuses. If Melissa ever truly shows up, not for appearances, but with sincerity, I'll open the door. But I won't beg. And if my parents want a relationship, they'll have to meet me where I am, not where it's comfortable for them. Because we don't stand outside anymore. We own the porch. And this Christmas, like everyone moving forward, there will be 12 chairs around the table, every seat filled. No explanations, no apologies. No more waiting for a place. Just warmth. And a red door that only opens for love that knows how to knock with grace.